Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're cracking open a brand new field journal to investigate one of the most fascinating geographic limits ever proposed by human curiosity, the edge of a flat Earth. We're going to embark on a real scientific journey here, blending our natural human wonder with some rigorous academic observation, just to see if we can actually track down the physical boundary of our world.
Our investigation really has to begin with a foundational premise. It's a philosophical and, honestly, a physical necessity. As our source material points out, if the Earth truly is flat, then somewhere out there, it literally has to end, right? There has to be a definitive point where the familiar ground just runs out, and something else begins. On a finite flat Earth, a boundary is simply unavoidable. It's not just some minor technical detail, it's the ultimate geographic destination. Because unless you're arguing for an infinite plane, which kind of eliminates the whole concept of a working map entirely, a flat Earth must stop somewhere.
Okay, let's dive into this. This is the ultimate question that's driving our whole investigation today. Now, we aren't packing up a physical ship just yet. Instead, from the comfort of our research desk, we're going to look at the hard data, the claims, and recorded human experiences to see if we can track down this boundary. Because if the edge is really out there, how do we find it? Where exactly do we point our compasses?
Journal Entry 1, Mapping the Unknown. To actually find our destination, we have to start by consulting a map.
For our investigation, we're going to focus on the most popular model presented in these discussions. It's loosely based on an azimuthal equidistant projection. Basically, in this projection, the North Pole sits dead in the center, and all the continents spread out around it. But notice the absolutely crucial detail here. Antarctica isn't just a continent sitting at the bottom of a globe. It forms a vast icy perimeter ring that surrounds the entire known world. So logically, to find the edge, we have to head south.
But right out of the gate, we hit a massive academic hurdle. To find a physical edge, you need way more than just a drawing. You need scale. You need to know the actual distance from, say, Australia to this boundary, or exactly how long it would take to travel along it. The problem our sources highlight is that there is absolutely no verified flat map with an accurate scale or measurable distances. As you move further from the center of this flat model, distances become wildly distorted. Without a measurable map, finding an edge is logically impossible. We can't just sail out into the dark. We need real coordinates.
Which brings us to Journal Entry 2, the ice wall mirage. If the map won't guide us, let's look at the physical environment itself. We're heading south to the coastlines of Antarctica. Out here, we see a stark contrast. The claim is completely cinematic. An enormous, impenetrable wall of ice, thousands of kilometers long, acting as a giant retaining wall holding in the oceans. But the documented geographic reality is quite different. When you actually look at the coastline, yes, you see an unfathomable amount of ice. You see these dramatic towering cliffs rising straight out of the sea and massive floating ice shelves. Visually, yeah, it kind of looks like a boundary. But an ice shelf is not the edge of the world. It's just floating ice attached to a verifiable continent. Ships sail right alongside it, and planes fly straight over it. Now, it's often claimed that Antarctica is this highly restricted, forbidden land, purposely keeping independent explorers far away from the edge. But the historical and modern records show something entirely different. Every single year, tourists travel down there on standard cruise ships, scientific researchers live and work at active stations year-round, pilots fly regular supply routes. Get this, there are even marathon runners who voluntarily raced in the freezing cold, which honestly is arguably crazier than looking for the edge of the world. The environment is strictly controlled because it's incredibly lethal, not because it's forbidden. You can literally book a trip right now, see the coastlines, and experience the interior for yourself.
Journal Entry 3, Navigating the Interior. We have to push past the coast and venture deep into the harsh, freezing heart of the continent.
Think about this for a second. If Antarctica were really a vast ring around a flat Earth, traveling inward would scatter explorers outward toward entirely different sections of a massive perimeter. But look at the actual documented human expeditions. Explorers depart the coastline, heading south. They navigate deep inland, and eventually travelers approaching from completely different directions all converge at one single point, the geographic South Pole. Once you pass that point, a fascinating navigational reality hits you. No matter which way you turn, every single direction is north. This convergence of longitude simply does not work mathematically or physically on a massive outer ring. The geography behaves exactly like a continent wrapped around a pole.
Journal Entry 4, By Sea and Sky.
Let's zoom out a bit. Let's step back from the ice and test this boundary claim on a much larger global scale. Now, what's really interesting about this data is how standard travel times completely contradict the massive scale of an outer perimeter. If Antarctica were a giant ring holding in the oceans, a ship attempting to circumnavigate it would face an enormously long journey. The distances would be absolutely unprecedented. Yet, recorded voyages by ocean vessels in commercial aircraft perfectly match the logistics, distances, and travel times of a globe. Every normal method of navigation we have, compass headings, distances, travel times, keeps directly pointing us toward globe-shaped geography.
Now, a very common counterpoint you'll hear is that commercial flights rarely cross Antarctica, which supposedly proves it's a restricted boundary zone. And hey, it is true that these flights are rare, but it's for very ordinary economic and safety-based reasons. There are simply very few major cities on opposite sides of the continent that actually require direct connections. Add in the severe weather conditions, environmental hazards, and an extreme scarcity of emergency diversion airports, and it just makes logistical sense to fly around. Airlines plan routes based on demand and keeping passengers alive. However, when sightseeing flights or scientific transports do cross the interior, they encounter no physical barrier at all.
Journal Entry 5, the scale of observation. We really have to step back and reflect on the staggering amount of human data required to map and understand our world. Because if the edge is real and the globe is just an illusion, hiding that edge wouldn't just be the work of one secretive agency. It would require a flawless, real-time, coordinated cover-up involving NASA, all international space agencies, independent commercial imaging companies, global weather services, and every single shipping and airline navigation board on Earth. The challenge isn't just producing one fake image in a lab. It is producing a continuous, internally consistent system that perfectly recreates the behavior of a globe in real time. We're talking about flawlessly matching sunrise times, GPS coordinates, and weather patterns across thousands of independent entities every single second of the day.
Final entry, the burden of proof. We've traversed the maps, we've explored the coastlines, and we've tracked global flight paths. So where does the burden of proof actually lie?
And this brilliantly illustrates the logical fallacy of the moving goalpost. Just notice how the boundary constantly behaves. First, the coastline is declared the edge. Then, when everyday explorers visit and document the coast, well, the edge retreats further inland. When people cross the interior using GPS, the edge is suddenly moved completely beyond the known continent. Finally, it just becomes an undocumented, supposedly restricted zone where no one is allowed to go. The edge magically retreats whenever rigorous evidence gets close to it, which makes the claim completely impossible to actually test.
Honestly, the most striking finding of our scientific journey today is what's missing. For a movement that heavily insists people should go out and verify things for themselves with their own eyes, the edge itself remains completely unverified. There are 0 verified coordinates, there are 0 mapped routes to actually get there, and there is 0 physical evidence of an actual boundary that cannot be easily explained by normal geographic features like glaciers or ice shelves.
We'll close our field journal today on this reflective note. We searched for an edge. We found cliffs, difficult terrain, and vast ice shelves, sure, but no boundary. If the consistency of our global data is no longer just hiding the world, but perfectly recreating the entire behavior of a globe in real time, if every compass, ship, and satellite points to a globe, what evidence is truly left that the world is secretly flat? It's a question that leaves us looking back at our mapped planet not with doubt, but with a renewed sense of absolute awe for the undeniable, beautiful reality of the world we actually live on.